Alright, what's happening, y'all? It's your boy Rico from StreetScores, and today we're here to break down the Washington Commanders versus Los Angeles Chargers preview, man. I have the most important matchup and stats for this game, and they get very specific as well. Even something as random as, do the Commanders have the best kick return unit in the entire NFL? I'm going to show you the stats to prove why and how that could potentially be impactful in this game. Of course, we have a big-time injury update for both teams. Both teams are really hurt and losing really big players on both sides of the ball. That's gonna matter, so we have to discuss that. And of course, I'm gonna give y'all my score prediction at the end, but I even have the ref stats update. I know a lot of y'all like the ref stats, and like, you know, depending on which referee crew it is, which calls are more likely to get called, which calls are less likely to get called, and all of that type of stuff. And you probably should adjust your game plan around that. We're gonna dive into all of that and more, but before we do, make sure you stiff arm that like button, stiff arm the subscription button, and stiff arm the bell next to that subscription button so you get notification each and every time I release an informative and opinion video just like this one. Make sure you stay tuned to all of the content. Shouts out to my Watch to the End gang, man. WTTEG in the building. Shouts out to Noti gang. You know what I'm saying? There immediately when these videos release. Shouts out to the late night crew putting in the vampire hours out there. Appreciate y'all as well. Even shouts out to the early morning crew. I saw some people in the comment section saying shout out to the early morning crew. Man, shouts out to the morning crew too, man. Putting in the first shift. You know what I'm saying? So let's go and dive into this video right now, man. Let's get it. Adam. All right, so first of all, Nikki Javala brought it to everyone's attention back on September 30th that Ron Rivera is calling the Commanders-Charger game on Sunday. If you're listening through the radio, through Sports USA Radio, Ron Rivera will be the analyst while Larry Kahn will be the play-by-play. Of course, television-wise, it's going to be Kevin Burkhardt and Tom Brady, Aaron Andrews, and Tal Rinaldi, like their premier team right there as far as Fox goes, because this is America's Game of the Week. This is going to be the game that everybody's watching, and I even have a map to show y'all like how serious this is. It's a map of the country, and it shows you how much and how many people will be getting our game versus the other game that will be going on at the same time. You'll see. This is the game to watch right now. You can clearly see. But then Dave brings up a good and funny point. It's basically destined for the Commanders to score a touchdown with less than a minute left in the game and then be forced to decide whether to tie or go for two and have Ron the analytics of the situation. Hey man, that's a thing. Ron Rivera did have a propensity for doing that for us when he was here coaching for us. Do we go for two? Do we just tie to take it into overtime? We ended up in a lot of those situations. Of Ron Rivera, his math was a little interesting. Now, if you look on the screen right now, the Commanders will be wearing white on white, and I thought it was really interesting that, I mean, our receiving core is so hurt that we're showcasing Luke McCaffrey. Now, granted, he does have a touchdown in each of the last two games, which is something that no other receiver on this entire team can say. But still, man, Luke McCaffrey, shouts out to him though, man. He looks clean in the white on white. Maybe this is foreshadowing that he's about to go out there and ball out. Like, I know he's had a touchdown each of the last 2 weeks. Maybe this week, not only does he get a touchdown, maybe he goes for over 100 receiving yards. We'll see. And then also, the captains have already been announced. Deebo Samuel is already the captain. I told y'all in this in my video late last night, shouts out to the late night crew, that Deebo Samuel will be a captain. So that goes to show he will be good to go. He's playing in this game, even though he was dealing with a heel injury, which forced him to miss practice on Wednesday and Thursday. Again, he's good to go. Javon Kinlaw is your defensive captain, and Jeremy McNichols is your special teams captain. Again, they really like Jeremy McNichols on special teams. That's why he's sticking around. Even outside of that big run, and he's a decent running back that's decent and everything. He can pass protect a little bit. He can run a little bit. He can receive the ball a little bit. But really, he's here because of his special teams, and really, he's just a jack of all trades type of guy. Now, moving on to some major updates, especially starting with the Commander side. As you can see for the Commanders, we have Noah Brown out, of course. Samuel Cosmi out, even though he did participate fully Wednesday and Thursday. It's more so a ramp-up process. Like, it's not because of his injury. It's more so just because he hasn't played in any live action since January. There's no way you could just go out there immediately the week that you're able to open up your practice window and go out there and play in an NFL game with the level of physicality that this sport even has. And then Terry McLaurin still dealing with that quad injury. out, of course, as well, even though some people are speculating that maybe he can come back as soon as the Bears game next week, or maybe even worst case scenario against the Cowboys the week after that. But also notable, Daron Payne suffered some sort of a knee injury that had him limited on Thursday, and then he didn't even participate in practice on Friday. But Dan Quinn did say that was just due to rest, and so apparently he should be good to go, and it looks like everybody else is good to go. Dorrance Armstrong, John Bates, Nick Bellore, Percy Butler, of course, Jaden Daniels. We're going to talk about him real soon. Ale Cajo, Mike Sanderstill, Deebo Samuel, and Colson Yonkoff all good to go. And of course, you can see on the Chargers side, Joe Alt out. That's far more impactful than them not having wide receiver Darius Davis, but still he's out as well. Then you have Mekhi Becton, who's questionable, and both of their tight ends, Will Dissly and Tucker Fisk, are also questionable as well. So even if they do play, they're pretty banged up, and there's no guarantee that either of those guys will play because they're questionable for a reason. They could be like a game time decision where either one of those guys do or do not play. We'll see. And then everybody else is good to go. Keenan Allen, Derwin James, Andre Jones, Taheeb Still, all of those other guys are good to go. But these are two really banged up teams. And of course, again, Deebo Samuel was the captain, but Tom Pelissero even made sure to announce yesterday that Deebo Samuel with a heel injury was a full participant in practice on Friday and is officially a full go Sunday versus the Chargers. And that's very significant because he has played like the best offensive player on our team so far this season. But of course, we're getting the true demon back, the true best offensive player on the team, and that is Jaden Daniels. Speaking of him, I know a lot of people are panicking over Jaden Daniels wearing a knee brace, and I super get it because it's already been confirmed. It's already been announced. I told y'all in my video last night, Jaden Daniels will be wearing a knee brace against the Chargers Sunday late afternoon. But even his mom had to speak out on it. Like, I get that people are panicking over it. I get the PTSD from the RG3 days and things like that. But even his mom had to speak out on it, replying to a John Com tweet that the Commanders fans were panicking under in his replies. Because he announced 23 hours ago, Dan Quinn said that Jaden Daniels had a great week, and Quinn also said that Daniels will need to wear a brace on his left knee for Sunday. And then people were just going crazy in the comments under that, to the point that even Jaden Daniels' mom had to reply on and quote tweet John Com's tweet, "Guys, relax, he's fine." So this doesn't feel like an RG3 situation because, first of all, Jaden Daniels is not RG3. Or more so, the better way to word it, RG3 is not Jaden Daniels. I think he should be good to go. I don't think that injury is anywhere near as severe as his. I also think Jaden Daniels does a better job of managing his injuries and avoiding hits in a way that just RG3 never did. And also, I feel like this organization is far more responsible, from the coaching staff, the front office, the medical staff, the physical therapy staff. Again, this is the same team that got 20 straight games out of both Zach Ertz and Bobby Wagner last year, when Zach Ertz was considered severely injury prone when we first signed him. This team knows what it's doing when it comes to, managing people's injuries and things like that. I trust that they're on this. And again, Jaden Daniels said he felt like he could have played all the way back since the Raiders game, and especially against the Falcons game, but this team held him out until this Chargers game. I feel like the fact that they're allowing him to play now, it goes to show that he is a really, really good to go. Because again, if he had to force it, if say last week against the Falcons was a playoff game, I'm pretty sure Jaden Daniels plays in that game. But the fact that they held him out that game, but now playing him now, just makes me even more confident that, yes, not only is he going to be out there, but he's going to be himself. He's going to be mobile. He's going to be using his legs and all of that type of stuff. But Cliff Kingsbury even talked about Jaden Daniels not having any restrictions in this upcoming Chargers game. He said, quote, "I think that's why we were overly cautious as far as keeping him out in previous games. We didn't want to put him out there unless he could be Jaden, unquote," which is insinuating that he will be Jaden going into this game. He was playable against the Raiders and Falcons, but Cliff Kingsbury said it himself that they didn't want to throw him out there unless he could be full-blown Jaden, using his legs and everything like that, mobility, that threat of him running at any given moment, scrambling, or even just quarterback design runs. Basically insinuating that against this Chargers game, yes, he will be himself. Yes, he will be able to run really well. Yes, he will be able to scramble. Yes, we're going to utilize his legs, maybe even some quarterback designed runs. So that makes me even more optimistic moving forward. And then shouts out to Doug Farbar. He brought up a great point, saying one interesting thing that Cliff Kingsbury did in the 2 games when Marcus Mariota started with Daniels out, the Commanders had no 6 offensive lineman snaps with Daniels, but then a league high 27 with Mariota. Completely different offense, and their EPA skyrocketed with Trent Trent Scott is their 6th defensive lineman. Watch this in Daniels' return, especially with him not being as mobile. Maybe he's probably not 100%. He's probably really good. It's probably a high percentage, maybe in the 80% or 90s, but he's definitely not 100%. But again, I really want to ask people, who is at this point in the NFL season, bro? It's a very physical game, but I like that point that, yes, and I'm not sure if a lot of y'all noticed, but Trent Scott has played a lot as a third tackle on the field since Marcus Mariota has started the last 2 games for us. I hope Cliff Kingsbury continues to do that with Jaden Daniels this upcoming week, especially since he's a little banged up and still returning back from injury. But remember that the Chargers defense is horrible against mobile quarterbacks. I talked about that in my video late last night. I feel like this is probably the best time to bring it up because this is the preview video. This is the matchups video, and we're going to dive deeper into it a little bit more later. But man, I mean, arguably the worst defense in the NFL against mobile quarterbacks. And then now we're hearing that Jaden Daniels will have no restrictions going into this game. The Chargers are in for it, bro. They better watch out. Also, I want to talk about the fact that, man, Kendrick Bourne went crazy in that Thursday night game, man. I mean, right now, with the way that our injuries are set up, the way that he looked in that game, let me emphasize specifically, he looks like he would have been a wide receiver 1 right now with Terry McLaurin out. Because, again, Deebo Samuel, it's hard to consider him a receiver because he's more of like a weapon. You utilize him in the backfield. He's the best kick returner in the NFL. We're going to dive into that a little bit later. And then, of course, he's been a really good receiver. He's been a far better deep threat than most people expected as well. But he's just an elite weapon. Right now, I think he's our best weapon on the team outside of Jaden Daniels. And I think Bill, if Cliff Kingsbury used him more often, could give Deebo Samuel a run for his money. But if we're talking about pure just route running wide receivers and that's all you do, you just run the route tree every play, Kendrick Bourne, especially with Terry McLaurin out, will probably be our most consistent receiver right now. He had a career-high performance with 10 receptions for 142 receiving yards, but I want to emphasize the fact that, you know, the grass isn't always greener. Hindsight's always 20/20, because at the same time, people aren't talking about how the game before, just last week, he had 1 catch for 17 yards and 3 drops. So that was more of an outlier than anything else. So I brought all of that up to say that I know our receiving core situation is a little banged up. It's a little ugly. And I know a lot of people, I've seen people on the internet talking about, man, we definitely should have signed Kendrick Bourne. We shouldn't have let him leave. But, I mean, I feel like that amazing game. Again, that was a career performance. That was the best game he's ever had in his NFL career. Now, granted, that's more yards in a game than Terry has ever had in his career. So that does look a little crazy. But at the same time, again, the week before, 1 catch, 17 yards, and 3 drops. Terry doesn't do that. You know what I'm saying? So he may have had a higher high than Terry, but he definitely the week before had lower lows than Terry. So it would be nice to have Kendrick Bourne, I could admit, but I don't think it's like Adam Peters just completely whiffed on a season-changing move that we should have had Kendrick Bourne type of thing. And speaking of receivers, bro, we do have Robbie Chosen. I'm not expecting him to come in here and immediately have a strong impact, but he said, quote, "I feel like there's a vision for me here and a real opportunity for me to contribute," unquote. Now, granted, we're going to talk about who we elevated from the practice squad a little later. I don't think Robbie Chosen's even playing in this game because, mind you, we didn't sign him to the 53-man roster. We signed him to the practice squad. So you may have to wait until, like, the Bears game for him to finally step onto the field in a Commander's uniform. But just remember, we have him in the refrigerator. Who knows? You know, Kendrick Bourne was available, and then, you know, we wanted him, but we ended up not getting him. Then Robbie Chosen was available. We made sure we got him. We'll see what happens there. But now, we just briefly talked about the Commanders' injuries, but what about the Chargers' injuries? Because, again, you saw the people that were out on the injury report, but what about all of the guys that are not even on the injury report because they're already on the IR? I mean, no Joe Alt, who you saw was out, no Rashawn Slater, who's already on the IR, so that's both of their starting offensive tackles, not only just starting offensive tackles, but, you know, this is a cap space league. You have very limited resources. It's not like soccer over there in Europe where if a biggest spender can just get everybody. You can just assemble the best team ever. So the fact that they've lost 2 Pro Bowl, all-pro talent level offensive tackles is big because that's where they spent a lot of their resources. Their first-round picks have gone to getting those 2 starting offensive tackles. So that means that they're fairly weak and maybe in other position groups on the team. And now that they've lost those, now the team just overall is weaker. That's the whole reason I wanted to bring that up. And then also they don't have Khalil Mack. And they already cut Joey Bosa at edge. So now they don't have any real starting edge rushers as well. So on the outside of both sides of the trenches, offensive line and defensive line, the Chargers are pretty vulnerable. And they also lost Najee Harris at running back. I mean, they have a lot of real serious injuries. Now, granted, Amari Hampton did go crazy last week against the Giants, but I think think the Commanders could do a pretty good job of stopping them, because I love Omarion Hampton. I wanted him coming out of the draft, but he's not Bijan Robinson. And the Commanders have done a pretty good job against every running back we've gone against so far. The Giants running back unit that gave the Chargers defense fits. They put them through it. Then you had Josh Jacobs. He had a touchdown, but overall, like on a yards per carry basis, he didn't do that well. Aston Genty, we super shut him down, and then immediately the week afterwards, he goes for a super career game. He always had that in him. The Commanders just did a good job of stopping him. Literally outside of the Falcons game with Bijan Robinson, who I feel like is arguably at least a top 3 running back, arguably just talent-wise specifically, maybe the best running back in the NFL. He gave us fits. And it was just more so a bunch of missed tackles, but schematically and even just effort-wise and instinctually, we were there a lot of the times. He just would break through tackles. He would juke people out of their socks and stuff like that. I love Omarion Hampton, but he's not Bijan Robinson. A lot of those Bijan Robinson big plays are not big plays. Of Omarion Hampton is the running back doing those exact same plays. So I think we'll be just fine there. Even, I mean, not to say that like Najee Harris, if he were healthy, he would have came in and done any better at all. I like Omarion Hampton way more than I like Najee Harris. But either way, the Chargers situation is so bad that they had to sign 2 former Commanders tackles. Remember these names? Foster Sarell and Bobby Hart ahead of our game. That's how ugly it is for them at tackle right now. Foster Sarell and Bobby Hart, who couldn't even crack our 53-man rosters. The Chargers had to go and sign them because it's just that ugly in the injury situation for those guys right now, man. I kind of feel sorry for them. And again, going back to the other side of the line of scrimmage on the outside, with all of their edge rushers gone, whether injury or cut, then you also have Clelin Ferrell, who got elevated by the Chargers to play against the Commanders, of course, his former team from this summer and last season. So Clelin Ferrell is going to be one of potentially the starting edge rushers going against us in this game, bro. So again, the Chargers are very weak on both outsides. If there were a game where Josh Connolly finally like just goes without giving up a single sack, a single pressure, a single anything, this is the game now. And speaking of elevating players from practice, the Commanders elevated wide receiver Tay Martin off of the practice squad, not Robbie Chosen. But Martin did play pretty well last week. He had a really good route and catch against the Falcons. He had really good special teams plays as well. So I'm not surprised that they elevated him. Shouts out to the DC Defender. Shouts out to Ed Oliver for always rooting for his DC Defender guys. I get it, man. I get it. And before we get into all of the most important matchups and stats into this game, before we really dive into where the strengths, where the weaknesses and things like that, who has the advantage in certain ways, football is a full go, y'all. We are now moving into week 5 of the NFL season already. It's already early October, which has me a little sad because I'm worried that the football season is going to go by too quickly. So let's make sure we enjoy this and savor this moment. But Washington football has never been more exciting, especially now that we have our top 5 quarterback and Jaden Daniels back. Deebo Samuel's gonna hoop. Nobody's been able to really stop him at any point this season. Luke McCaffrey still emerging. Cliff Kingsbury, please unleash and unlock Bill Krosky Merritt. Give him more than 10 carries in a game. Please, bro, I'm telling you, you won't regret it. But you can pick on stats for these stars like touchdowns, passing yards, receiving yards, fantasy points, and more for up to 1,000 times payout on Sleeper. And right now, users can even get a free $20 without a deposit. And on top of that, of course, you still have the up to $100, 100% match up to $100 if you use promo code SCORE. That's SCORE. Or you can even just click the link at the top of the description of this video and every video on live stream that you'll see me do all season. And of course, it's not just the Commanders in the NFL. NBA preseason starts tonight, I believe. I know my Timberwolves go out there and play a preseason game this evening. But then you have the MLB, you have the NHL, you have college football, you have college basketball, you have the WNBA that I believe are in the finals right now. Sleeper can get you with all of those, man. It's a richer experience watching all of those sports and games with Sleeper, I'm telling you. Now let's go ahead and dive into all of the important stats and matchups, man. Let's get it. So now for the most interesting matchups and stats coming into this game. Where each team at their strongest, where they're at their weakest, all of that type of stuff. And again, like as promised, we're even going to do the referee deep dive later on in the video. But now let's start with our pass rush versus their super hurt offensive line. I feel like this is a way that we could really take advantage of the situation. Mind you, the Giants last week had a 47.7% pressure rate against the Chargers offensive line that was super banged up, because I believe that's when Joe Alt got hurt last week, and so they went a lot of the game without him, nor of course their Rashawn Slater, one of the best tackles in football. And the Giants were able to get 20 pressures just from Brian Burns Abdul Carter and Kayvon Thibodeau alone. Now, granted, the Commanders aren't necessarily that Giants defensive line, but if they can get a 47.7% pressure rate, can we at least get 30%, which is still really good. Now, mind you, let me show you this chart right here, because the Commanders defensive line isn't as bad as some people may think. It just kind of feels like it, especially after the way that Falcons game went. But look at this chart, man. So pressure rate wise, the Commanders are 9th in the NFL with a 42.3%. If we're averaging a 42.3% per game, and now we're going against this Chargers O-line that's going to be the weakest O-line we arguably face all year just because of the injuries that they've suffered. It's even weaker than that week 1 Giants offensive line that we went against because of injuries. Why would we not at least, and then again, they just allowed 47.7% to the Giants. Can we at least get our own average, if not even exceed that in this upcoming game? But our problem is where we are really weak, arguably the weakest at, even though we're ranked 15th in this category, but this is our weakest part of our pass rush right here. It's the pressure to sack rate. We get a lot of pressures. They just don't turn into sacks very often if we're talking about efficiency wise at 16.7%. You know what I'm saying? And there's a lot of teams like that. Again, that's where we're 15th. We're average at that. That's not even that bad. And then when you're talking about sack rate, we're 13th at 7%. So even though we don't get sacks very often compared to how many times we get pressures, we just get so many pressures that we end up actually getting a pretty good amount of sacks. And then blitz rate, we're 14th at 27.5% out of the NFL. So that does show that Joey Jr. is around average as far as dialing up pressures from linebackers and DBs and things like that, guys other than just the normal defensive line. But then when it comes to non-blitz pressure rate, we're 8th in the NFL. So when you're only sending 4 defensive linemen like we typically do, we're 8th in the NFL at pressure rate at 40.2%. So that means that we're one of the best teams in the NFL at getting consistent pressure on the quarterback, even without blitzing. And then on top of that, when it comes to pass rush win rate, like how often our guys just beat the offensive lineman in front of them, we are 14th, somewhere around average in the NFL at 42% there. I'm telling you right now, this defensive line is going to potentially eat against this Chargers O-line, because again, this is going to be the worst O-line at least since we faced this season, and it's purely because of injuries. If the Chargers are fully healthy, this is one of the better O-lines we face all year, but the injuries have them so just out bad. This is going to be one of the weakest O-lines we probably face again all year. Now moving on to our offense versus their defense, specifically in the run game department. Because how about Jay Daniels MVP for letting us know that the Chargers defense this year are 4th in points per game allowed with 17.8, 3rd in yards per game allowed with 270, 2nd in red zone touchdown percentage in 30.77, so they do not give up touchdowns. They're 2nd in 1.5 touchdowns per game. That's very low. That's elite. And of course, also their sack rate is a 22%, which is 5th. This is a very feisty defense, a very dangerous defense, but at the same time, JP Finley pointed out the fact too that the Chargers have the 2nd ranked defense in the NFL overall, and they haven't given up more than 21 points this season. That is actually crazy, bro. They haven't given up more than 21 points in any game at all, and they still found a way to lose to the Giants. That's incredible in itself. But Mark Phillips brought up a great point, and this was what I want to dive into. The Chargers have a good overall defense, but their run defense isn't on the same level as their pass defense at all. The Giants had decent success running the ball on them, especially Jackson Dart in particular. They cannot stop mobile quarterbacks. Shouts out to Hale Maryland. He said he watched the Chargers versus Giants. His main point takeaways: 1, Scatterbo and Dart reminded him of RG3 and Alfred Morris. That's how weak the Chargers defense looked, more so than a compliment to those two. Number 2, Quinton Johnston is a problem. We're going to talk about him, of course. That's one of the scariest weapons that the Chargers have at their disposal on offense. Number 3, the Chargers can't stop our run game. Dart and Scat smash them. And 4, Giants can't stop counters, but we can. And that talks about the Hampton big runs that he had against the Giants. We excel at stopping that. You know, our run defense hasn't particularly been like perfect, but one thing we can stop is counters, and that's one thing that the Chargers use to abuse against the Giants, but at least we can stop that. But most importantly, going back to our run offense versus their run defense, even though a lot of those notes were really interesting. Shouts out to JP Finley. He said in 4 games, the Commanders are 17th in the NFL in rushing attempts with 105, but also in 4 games, the Commanders are 2nd in NFL in rushing yards. How are we 17th in rushing attempts, but 2nd in rushing yards with 619? A few big runs, C-Rod for 50, J-Mac for 60, can skew those numbers, plus quarterback runs, but still, this emphasized Cliff Kingsbury. Run the ball, dog. Shouts out to Resh Manuel. He said, even for reference, last season after 4 games, the Commanders had 134 rushing attempts for 677 yards. So that's 29 more rushing attempts in only 68 more yards. So a little less than extra yard per attempt. In a game of inches, every yard matters. This is a way better rushing team this year than even what we were last year. Of course, I feel like Bill has a lot to do with that. And without Jaden, it drops to 88 rushing attempts for 459 yards, so even worse. This team is just better at running the ball than we were last year. Cliff Kingsbury, please act like it. Also, shouts out to Mike Hall of Burgundy Zone for pointing out the fact that the Chargers are one of the worst in the league versus the quarterback run. This came directly from Mina Combs, and she talked about how she thinks the only way that the Commanders have a chance is if Jaden Daniels uses his legs against the Chargers, which I think he will. Mike Hall also said, I tend to agree he's probably going to need to convert a couple of 3rd or 4th downs just to keep Herbert and that offense off the field. That's going to be really important. Jaden Daniels' legs is going to be really important for keeping our defense off the field and not having them out there against that Chargers offense very often like they were against that Falcons offense. They were just out there all game, it felt like. And then Cliff Kingsbury going back to how he's going to protect the Jaden Daniels, because I'm pretty sure we're going to unleash him like I just talked about. The Chargers defense is arguably the worst at going against mobile quarterbacks and quarterbacks running and things like that. So, of course, you want to go ahead and utilize that, take advantage of that. But Cliff Kingsbury even talked about trying to keep Jaden Daniels from playing outside of the pocket post-injury. He said, quote, yeah, no, I think that's really why we were overly cautious with him, because we didn't want to put him out there until Jaden could be Jaden, and that's what he's going to be, and that's how he's going to play. Basically saying that, hey, if Jaden's playing, he's doing all of the Jaden stuff like we briefly talked about earlier, but with more detail now, specifically playing outside of the pocket. He's going to be doing a lot of that. Cliff Kingsbury's already telling you that right now. And then also he talked about Daniels' ability to protect himself. He said, quote, yeah, it's instinctive. I mean, guys like him and Kyler Murray, who's an undersized player that I was with in Arizona, I mean, they played that way their entire life. They always, in Jaden's case, been a little slimmer than the other guys, and Kyler's a little smaller, and they know how to protect themselves, and they know where to find the soft spot, and they've played that way their entire lives. So it's like 10,000 hours put into it, unquote. And basically said all of that to say that I trust Jaden Daniels to protect himself. We're going to call the plays as if he's 100% ready to go. We're going to unleash him fully to that Chargers defense that's very weak against stopping mobile quarterbacks. And then it's up to Jaden Daniels really to protect himself. Of course, Cliff Kingsbury saying that out loud, he's probably going to call plays slightly differently and things like that. But ultimately, he trusts Jaden Daniels to protect himself. Also, shouts out to Mike Hall going back to him, because I completely agree. He said, if I'm Cliff Kingsbury, first play on offense, I'm going quarterback counter tray, quarterback power, read option, quarterback draw, something to get Jaden Daniels attacking the defense with his legs to let them know that Jaden is fully okay and he's going to be a threat with his legs all day, whistle to whistle. I completely agree with that. At least put it in their head that, yes, you have to deal with this. You have to account for this. You're not about to focus on stopping Jaden Daniels' arm and his passing attack. You're not about to just solely focus on our running backs. You have to worry about Jaden Daniels taking off as well, and that's going to make other things like passing the ball and running the ball with our running backs easier because of the threat of Jaden Daniels. You need to make sure that threat is out there and known by the Chargers defense. Also, shouts out to Chris Russell. He said the Chargers defense has recorded a 16% missed tackle rate this season. That's the second highest in the NFL. So you thought our tackling was bad. The Chargers tackling is even worse. 13 different defenders have missed multiple tackles, tied with the Cowboys for the most in the NFL. Derwin James has missed 5 tackles after missing only 6 tackles all last year. I don't know if there's some type of injury going on. Of course, he was banged up. He was limited in practice. He's going to play. He should be a full go, basically. But, you know, this is not the same Chargers defense, especially compared to last year. So they're bad against mobile quarterbacks. They're terrible at tackling. Sounds like a Bill Krosky-Merritt breakout game to me, bro. Cliff, please utilize him and utilize Jaden Daniels' legs as well, like we already discussed. Now, moving on to the fact that, I mean, is this a regressing offense going against a wet toilet paper defense? The Chargers offense versus the Commanders defense is what I'm saying. Because is this like the opposite of an unstoppable force versus an immovable object? It seems like this is a very stoppable force versus a very movable object in this situation. Let's talk about it. Because Justin Herbert through 4 games, weeks 1 and 2, 72% completion percentage, 280 yards per game, 5 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. The last 2 weeks, 58%, and I don't feel like it's any coincidence that it's because his offensive line is very banged up. He has a lot of injuries on the entire team, but specifically the offensive line. He has a 58% completion percentage. That's 14% less. In the same amount of games, 2 weeks, the first 2 weeks, the last 2 weeks, 251 yards per game, and then 2 touchdowns. And how about 3 interceptions for Justin Herbert, bro? So again, this is a very stoppable force, but at the same time, we are a very movable object because explosive plays given up by the Commanders defense through 4 games, 2024, 20 plus yards, 10, 40 plus yards, 1. How about so far in the same sample size, but in 2025, 20 plus yards, 12, that's 2 more, and 40 plus yards, that's 4 more than we were at this point last year. So this defense is giving up more explosives than they even gave up last year when we were worried about the explosives that our defense was giving up. And at the same time, the Washington Commanders have a bottom 5 defense in yards per attempt, passer rating, and explosive play rate allowed, all 3 categories, to slot receivers specifically, bro. And it's my Georgia Bulldog, Ladd McConkey, pulling up to try to take advantage of that. So what are we going to do, bro? And you can't even just focus on him because you have to also focus on Quentin Johnson, who right now is balling out. And even Keenan Allen has turned the clock back a little bit, getting some touchdowns here and there. So this receiving core is nothing to play with. But hopefully, you know, the guy on our side, most notably Trey Amos, I don't know if y'all know, but ML Football put out the Week 5 Defensive Rookie of the Year rankings so far. Just kind of like an update. Where are we at with Defensive Rookie of the Year? They have Trey Amos as 5th, behind Jahad Campbell at 1 with the Eagles, Will Johnson at 2 for the Cardinals, Carson Swessinger with the Browns at 3, Jacob Parrish with the Bucks at 4, and then Trey Amos 5th, even after having a bad game, arguably his first bad game of the season for him, of his NFL career last week against the Falcons. I'm ready for him to bounce back and try to, you know, get a little bit higher on that Defensive Rookie of the Year ranking system right now that ML Football has. But then also, what about the rest of our corners? Because again, you just can't focus on stopping Ladd McConkey. Maybe Trey Amos can handle that a little bit, but honestly, you would hope that Mike Sanverstill, your slot corner, can do that. And he's been off so far this season. Granted, he got that interception against the Falcons, but that was one highlight amongst a bunch of lowlights that he had throughout that game and so far throughout this season. Is this the game where he finally starts to look like his 2024 self again? I really hope so. We're going to need it. And then, is Marshawn Lattimore going to keep his pattern of playing well every other game going? You know what I'm saying? Notice, good week, week 1. Bad week, week 2. Good week, week 3. Bad week, week 4. Potentially a good week, week 5. It seems like odd number weeks he plays well. You know what I'm saying? Is there something to that? And then even number weeks he plays poorly. We'll see what happens in this game if that's just a real thing. Because I'm going to know something. If you can't cover, you know, the receiving cores that you struggled against, especially the Packers specifically, but then you suddenly go out there against the Chargers with Ladd McConkey, Quentin Johnson, and Keenan Allen and those guys, and Justin Herbert at quarterback, if you suddenly go out there and have a good day against them, which I'm hoping you have, then maybe you do have a numbers curse. Odd numbers, good games for Marshawn Lattimore. Even numbers, bad games. Maybe Joey Jr. at a certain point needs to adjust around the fact that that's a thing. And then also, before we move on to the ref stats breakdown, do the Commanders have the best return unit in the entire NFL? Because rookie Jalen Lane, in my opinion, coming out of the draft, was already the best returner in this 2025 class. So I wasn't the least bit surprised when he ran back his first punt return touchdown against the Raiders. Not the least bit surprised. I honestly thought it may happen sooner, like week 1 or week 2. But what about our kickoff returners going crazy as well? I mean, Jalen Lane is easily the best young, at least rookie punt returner in the NFL right now. But how about Deebo Samuel being the best kickoff returner in the NFL according to average yards returned per return, with at least 5 kickoffs? So Deebo Samuel has 36.8, leading the NFL. Guess who's second? Luke McCaffrey. Again, this is not just on the Commanders team. This is the entire NFL. Luke McCaffrey's second with 31.7. Then you have Isaiah Davis of the Jets with 29.4. Then you have Antonio Gibson of the Patriots, familiar name right there, with 29.3. It just keeps going down and down and down and down. Again, mind you, Deebo Samuel and Luke McCaffrey right now are 1 and 2 as far as average return yards per return, at least having 5 kickoffs returned in the entire NFL. That's going to be huge for this game, bro. Flip and field positioning, all of that type of stuff. We are really going to need that. I hope we make sure we utilize and excel in that, bro. We need that. We need some great punt returns from Jalen Lane. We need some great kick returns from Deebo Samuel and Luke McCaffrey, even though against the Falcons, I noticed that Jalen Lane was back there on kickoffs a lot of the time, if not all of the time. So that's something we definitely need to pay attention to. Now, also, another really random, but I know this was a highly requested stat that I used to bring in last year, so I wonder if y'all still care about it this year. How do y'all feel about the officiating crew cheat sheet provided by NFL Ref Stats on Twitter? He said home teams are 103-47, 69% SU, and 90-55-5 against the spread, 62% with referee John Husey since 2016. That's the best home field advantage of any referee in that time. That's scary for us, bro. When this guy's refereeing a game, the home team is far more likely to win than any other referee crew in the entire NFL. Hussey's crew also are calling an above average of 47% on overall penalties via the all-important off-hold false start combination, league average of 38%. So watch out. Please watch out. There are going to be a lot of false start and off-hold penalties. Also, through 4 weeks, Hussey's crew are co-ranked last awarding automatic first downs via penalty, so don't expect a lot of those. But when they do award auto first downs, it's overwhelmingly via defensive holding and defensive pass interference. So Trey Amos, Marshall Lattimore, Mike Sanford still in our DB, all the rest of the DBs, including you, Darnell Savage, watch out. Also, these guys emphasize discipline-related penalties more than most, unsportsmanlike conduct and taunting. So chill out, Commanders. Chill out. Any extracurricular activity, just know this referee crew, above all else, any other referee crew in the NFL, these guys are really on that type of stuff. Also, the Chargers and Commanders almost mirror each other from an overall penalty percentages perspective, so we're very similar there. And then the home field with this crew is noteworthy, but SoFi is a destination stadium, not a home stadium, and that's a great point. I'm guessing we see a lot of Washington fans in attendance Sunday, like we did with the 49ers versus the Rams on Thursday Night Football. Also, on top of that, I feel like we're also going to dominate crowd noise just off of the fact that Jaden Daniels is the hometown kid. Like I've already told y'all, it's going to be a lot of Arizona State Jaden Daniels jerseys in there. There's going to be a lot of his high school jerseys in there as well. It's going to be just as many, if not more, people rooting for Jaden Daniels than even just the Chargers themselves, let alone the Commanders on top of that. And then also they finished up by saying the Chargers without 3 key players, Mack, Alton, Slater, is huge, and I like the visiting team here getting +3 points and maybe even the outright win. So be on the lookout. Let's get it. Now, like I foreshadowed way earlier, here is the Fox map of the games that they're broadcasting via their exact channel. Again, we have their number 1 team. The Detroit versus Cincinnati game has their backup team, so everybody's mostly watching this game. And again, you can even just tell by the map how many people are getting our game compared to the Detroit and Cincinnati game. Our game is in red. The Detroit and Cincinnati game is in blue. This is going to be the most watched game during that 4 p.m. slot, even though other, sports channels are broadcasting other games, but this is going to be the most watched one. And then also, shouts out to NFL Network for treating us like underdogs. I love being an underdog. I mean, Edholm is the only one that picked us to win at all, 24-1. It's not even like a super dominant or even a convincing win. It's like a barely potentially game-winning field goal type of win. Everybody else that you see on this NFL Network panel is picking against the Commanders. Also, I want to remind you, shouts out to Dula Vision over there for bringing this up as well. As you can see in my background as well, the last time Jaden played against Justin Herbert, it was crazy. We're hoping for a repeat of this game. And as you can see with the stats, Justin Herbert, 304 yards, 2 touchdowns. Mind you, this is Justin Herbert just about to go get drafted early in the first round. Justin Herbert. This is true freshman Jaden Daniels, 408 yards, 3 touchdowns, outplayed Justin Herbert. Didn't Justin Herbert end up winning the Heisman that year as well, too, if I'm not mistaken? Like, come on, bro. Like, golly, man. So Jaden Daniels has always had Justin Herbert's number, even going back to college. Let's hope he could do it this time again. And now, moving on to my score prediction, I have us winning 27-3. So I'm not much better than Edholm that had us winning 24-21 with a 3-point win. I have us winning by 4. And I see us having like a bend but don't break defense that gets a lot of pressure on Justin Herbert, and the Chargers move the ball a lot, convert a lot of forced downs, but we force them to kick a lot of field goals. And I could even see it coming down to Jaden Daniels game-winning touchdown, drive at the end in front of his hometown crowd, cheering him on and all of that type of stuff. That would be magical. That would be like a fairy tale script level type of stuff. I'm also predicting that a 3rd straight game, Luke McCaffrey goes out there and gets a touchdown. Really rooting for that. And I'm also hoping that this is the game that Cliff Kingsbury finally gets Bill, lets him out the cage, and gives him like 15 plus carries. Because if he does, he's going for over 100 yards rushing alone. I'm telling you right now. So that's my prediction. Bill big game, Luke McCaffrey with a touchdown, Jaden Daniels game-winning touchdown drive. We're down 20-3. Jaden Daniels leads us to win the game 27-3 with like very little clock, to the point that the Chargers have no chance of doing anything back on offense, and we walk away victorious in Los Angeles and move to 3-2. Let's get it. But yeah, man, that's the end of this video. Please get in the comment section, let me know about everything discussed video. Please stiff arm that like button, stiff arm the subscription button, stiff arm the bell next to that subscription button so you get notification each and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this. So make sure you stay tuned to all of the content. Really appreciate y'all for supporting all of the videos. I mean, just even the fact that you can hear me and see me right now, appreciate you for that alone. Really appreciate y'all. Shouts out to my watch to the end gang, man. WTTEG in the building. Shouts out to the late night crew that even though I'm recording this at 5 p.m. it's probably going to be out by 6 p.m. Those y'all that are still going to be watching this during the vampire hours. And then of course, shouts out to Noti gang as well. The people that watch this immediately after as soon as I release it. Shouts out to y'all, because I'll still be working on like the description. I already start seeing notifications and comments. Like, y'all be going crazy. I really appreciate y'all, man. And of course, make sure you leave a like on the way out. And of course, let me know if you agree or disagree with any of my points. But most notably, more than anything else, I want to see y'all's predictions for this game. What is your score prediction? Do you predict the Commanders are going to win or lose? And I also, of course, more importantly than anything else, I want to know why. I want to know why you feel that way. If you have any stats, if you have any matchups that you feel like the Commanders could take advantage of, or we have a disadvantage in, let me know all of that in the comment section. I really appreciate y'all. Again, leave a like on the way out. Appreciate y'all. I'm out.